Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sloppy Lab. This is Bottom of the Beaker, the weekly show about the design, ducks, and strategy of Keyforge, everybody's favorite unique card game, and I do mean everybody. My co-host tonight is none other than the man who says that his favorite decks are all in the 34 to 57 SAS range.
It's a true story.
The best decks. I am, of course, talking about Quick Draw 3, 4, 5, 7. How are you doing tonight, Quick Draw?
I'm pretty good. How are you tonight?
I guess I didn't say who I am, but I'm doing great, and it's JT Russell right here.
What is your favorite SAS range?
Oh, that's tough. I feel like low to mid 70s is a lot of fun. Low to mid
I was
70s is a
gonna
lot of fun.
I was gonna guess low 60s for you.
Low 60s. I have some fun in low 60s. My perhaps favorite deck is a low 60s deck. Um, that is, of course, Danzag, which is criminally underrated at 60 something.
Well, they just released a SAS update tonight, so we may not have all of this data memorized already.
65.
Um,
Wow. There you go.
yeah, there you go. I know you like those low 60s. You got Venizag is the one that came to mind for me. You got a few others in that range too.
I do.
Um,
I do.
and we're not just rambling. We're gonna be talking about this tonight.
Yeah. So I guess on that note, we have a winner to announce, right? A winner to announce in my quest to give away Quick Draw's VM23 decks.
The quest is about to become successful
That's right.
shortly shortly after this episode.
Seventh Sanctum card has been played. We were about to forge a key. So we announced a couple episodes back that we were going to be doing a giveaway, and folks could send in either a topic suggestion or a puzzle, or basically anything else you wanted to send in. Just say hi, and probably would have put you into the drawing. And we have a winner. I'm going to tell y'all who it is. It is Josh T. Josh T. I won't say your last name, but Josh T, you were the only Josh to make a submission. And not only that, but Josh, you were the only person to send an email to this is a really bad idea at sloppylapper.com.
That's good enough to get the win already,
I
but
mean,
your
yeah.
email also had some great content in it. So
hmm
almost like a double winner.
Almost like a double winner. And yeah, welcome to the folks in the chat. Hey, Dataforge Stream and Ketzer, welcome, welcome. But yeah, Josh T, you're getting a VM23 deck. So yeah, shoot us a message back with your mailing deets, or I'll ping you later this week and we'll get it all sorted out. So congrats to you. And thank you for the awesome topic suggestion too. Also, thanks to the other folks who sent them in. There were a lot of great topics. And sorry, Mom, you can only get one entry per submission. That's why you didn't win with your many, many submissions, I guess.
Yeah, if your mom would have won the drawing, there's no way I would have allowed that.
uh,
Family members exempt because we all know that Mama Russell would have given that Vaultmaster straight back to you, and that's just not cool, man.
just not cool. Not cool. So yeah, friends and family excluded, unfortunately. But well, not friends and family, just family, just immediate family, immediate family.
Everyone's friends.
Everyone's friends. Yeah, but yeah, congrats to Josh. Thanks to everybody else, and you don't have to stop. I guess keep sending them out. Though you don't have to use that email address anymore. I guess is a thing.
Does anyone know the secret of the email addresses?
I don't know. What's
Is
the
that public
secret?
knowledge?
Well, maybe. What's the secret? I don't know.
I don't know. It's a secret. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not going to out that secret.
All right. Cool. Well, I won't either, I guess. But yeah. So Josh's topic was around questions about SAS, and wondering, we see some very successful low SAS decks out there. We see some very successful high SAS decks out there. Kind of getting at, well, how do we go about identifying some of the good lower SAS ones? How rare are those ones? Are they as rare as they seem to be? And a lot of things kind of in that vein. And I don't know if we'll stick to each prompt that Josh laid out as was laid out, but I think it's going to be a great jumping off point. I'm kind of excited to talk about it. I do love low SAS decks specifically, and I do love SAS Cap, though we're not going to be talking about SAS Cap specifically. Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely a bit different than SASCAP, especially because what we are looking for are trying to find ways to help you find some low SAS gems in your collection that might be competitive in a competitive sense, not just competitive in a SAS cap, which is a very different type of meta, looking for different things, trying to do different things. So we're not going for that. We are not looking for a SAS cap meta. We are looking for something that more players might have in their collections than they think, and try to
Mm.
like figure out what can we do as players to analyze and find those kind of decks.
You mean like Danazag?
Like Denizag. If Denizag were good.
Danazag were good.
There are some notable decks in the community, and I know we don't want to like talk too much about specific decks, but these are some decks that people might know already. Like without us having to talk about them and share the cards, drop the links. Most prominently with this podcast, obviously Rector from
Hmm.
Not Tonight. Um, we call it famous now. I think it's fair. It's a famous
Yes,
deck.
the famous deck.
Uh, Excellent AOA deck with Time Traveler, no Amber control except for like one or two cards. Uh, Nepenthe Seed, lots of different lines of play. Very cool deck. So that's one. Aurora's deck, Natural Philosopher, Bazzy Biztoth is probably one of the, if not the most famous one. Actually
Hmm.
won the Alliance Championship in the UK this year, I believe, last year.
Hmm.
Um, as an Archon deck, as a low SAS Archon deck, which is like, what is it, low 70s, I think it is now.
It's coming in at 70 right now. It may have been high 60s even for a while.
It was,
Yeah.
yeah. So those are, two of the more prominent ones. This is the kind of thing we're looking for, like decks that, you might open. I honestly think that, I don't know, I don't want to speak for Aurora, not tonight, but I feel like when they open those decks, I don't think they instantly looked at this and like, wow, this could win a major tournament. I don't think they had that thought. Maybe they did. And that's no disrespect to them if they to say that I don't think they had that thought. It's just that both of these decks on paper are pretty unassuming.
Hmm.
And for those of us that have lots of decks at home, I have over 500 right now. You have an unspecified quantity that will not be discussed. How do you kind of like? We've all got those kind of decks that you look at that and you're like, okay, like that seems pretty good. I wonder how good, and um, we're gonna try to tease out some ways to pick those out of your collection.
Hmm. And I think we'd be remiss too to mention, not to mention that you brought a lower SAS deck to the Keyforge World Championship this year. Looking over
I
the
did.
decks there, I have it reverse sorted by SAS, and you're tied for the top. You're tied for the top, as it were.
Top as in bottom.
Top of the bottom with
Um,
Beaker.
yeah, I wish that I had a better performance so that that argument would carry more weight. I brought a 73 SAS deck to the World Championship this year. Went 1-2 with it. I beat Woe, which is what I came to do, and I lost to AOA and Coda. So I don't regret that decision. I think the deck's great. I think it certainly could have competed. I got it for a bargain on the secondary market, and I do believe that I'm going to try to work through some things tonight on this show, this episode, to point out that I think these decks are more common than we believe,
Mm.
and not everyone, maybe not everyone has one, but I think more of us do than we think, and there's definitely some on the secondary market.
Yeah, absolutely on the secondary market. And I think this is also how we differentiate this topic a little bit from, just making it work with a small collection or just playing on a budget. Because it's not just, okay, I have these 10, 20 decks. How can I get the most out of them? It's also like maybe I have a couple hundred decks and I'm trying to figure out which are the ones I should invest a little bit more time getting some reps with, or if I'm on the hunt and maybe not wanting to spend too much money, how am I gonna find some of these gems that folks are sleeping on, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
All right. So before we get to the meat of this, while we're somewhat close to the top of the show, I think we should mention we have some news, maybe a teaser, maybe it's news. I don't know how we want to. I
Hmm.
don't know what it is. Maybe it's both. But Sloppy Lab Work, exciting announcement. We have a Discord server now. We had multiple people ask us about it in the last week or so, and we thought, like especially with a lot of the survey that you sent out a couple weeks ago now, we thought like maybe this is good time to do a little launch here, communicate more directly with all of our listeners. That means you. And so we will be dropping a link and an invite to the Discord server in the show notes. If you are watching on Twitch, we'll drop it in the chat shortly. And if you are listening to this on YouTube or Twitch and you don't have the link handy, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll see if you're cool enough to be let in. And if not, everyone should get the link by the time this show drops. Um, so yeah, it's really exciting. It's going to be very cool to talk directly with all of you guys. It always means so much to me personally when I get someone reach out to me and say, "Hey, like I loved your last episode." So hopefully we can kind of just have more direct interactions. Very excited to talk to you guys all more.
Yeah, we started out with some of the past guests, inviting them all in, and they've been like, thank you to kind of helping us get stuff situated and the feedback there. So that's been fun, and yeah, I don't know, looking forward to it. Looking forward to it indeed. So come on in. We'll try not to bite too hard. I mean, unless you're into that sort of thing, you know.
Even if you are, I will not be biting.
Okay, well, quick try might not bite. You might get a JT bite. I don't know.
JT's got to reread the code of conduct if he's going to be biting people. I don't know.
All right. I guess I should reread that. I don't know.
All right. Well, topic of tonight, the name of the episode is SAS Busters, and we couldn't help but think of the Ghostbusters theme. I guess there's a connection with Geistoid. It all makes sense. It's all connecting.
Can we
but
sing
this,
the Ghostbusters theme, but as SAS Busters? All right,
I
on
don't.
three. All right, 1, 2, 3.
I
Nothing.
heard you have a really good singing voice.
You heard wrong.
We've been waiting for this.
You heard wrong. Yeah, Sloppy
Maybe
After
that's
Dark. It's
maybe
a
not
hidden
tonight
channel.
has
Sorry.
the not tonight has the singing voice. You have the magic tricks, right?
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think I think Crusader's a good singer too. But anyway, we digress.
He's got to be. He's got to be.
We digress.
All right. So SAS Busters tonight. This was a great topic again, as you mentioned, sent in by Josh T. Very thankful for that. We read through a ton of content in Josh's email. Really exciting stuff. Hopefully, we can try to answer all or most of Josh's questions and points. Um, and so this is really interesting because it definitely made me rethink about like, okay, like what decks do I want to like revisit, and how am I going to find those as well? So this is very applicable, I think, to everybody. But it made me really think this week as well. And I always had I have tags in DOK that I use for decks that I want to try out, like a playtest tag and
Hmm.
maybe like a fun playtest tag for something I'm like, oh, this looks fun, but probably not good. But I also have this playtest tag where it's things that I think like, man, this might be good. And if I only had enough time to try out all of those, I have probably like, I don't even know, 50 or 60 at this point, which is just
Wow.
at that point, it gets to be too many, right? Because like you set up a system where you're thinking, I have 78, great. You set up a system where you're like, this is great. I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to get to play this deck more, and then you just keep doing it, and you don't play those games enough. And now I'm at 78 decks that I say, yeah, I should give this a shot. But um, the important thing that I am missing with this process is that you really need to play them. Like you get the reps in. That is like, in my opinion, how you're going to know. And I realize that we're going to start with like kind of a cop out answer, like
Hmm.
play the deck, but it's kind of true. And don't just play it once, don't just play it 5 times, play it like 10 or 15 times because these low SAS decks, they're not going to have all of the power cards. You're not going to have all gas. You're going to need to have more nuances to your play, to cards you hold, to cards you're digging for. And they're going to take a little bit of practice, more practice than you might get from like the big bangers. And so it is not really a cop out when I say get some reps in with it. I really think that if you can isolate the decks that you want to try out, and we'll talk about more specifics of finding those, the reps first and foremost is the only way you're going to really know for sure.
Mm. Hmm. So you're kind of saying, yeah, these 90 plus SAS decks, they're showing up, 1 in 1,000 ish. The lower SAS bangers seem like they might be as rare, but the reality is, they're probably out there, and folks aren't giving them enough of a shot. And so, if you feel like you've got one that's got some legs, yeah, give it that 10 or 15 reps and see what it does. And I think that's true too. I think that a lot of the higher rated decks will often just have higher card quality. If not be better decks, they may just have higher card quality. And so there's a lot of higher rated decks that will kind of play themselves a little bit more than a lower rated deck will. And that doesn't mean you can't get as much out of it, but it might mean that you have to spend a little time working with it to get the most out of it that you can.
Do you like that 10 or 15 number? Is that enough?
Um, I really don't feel like I've necessarily gotten a great sense for what a deck's doing until at least 5 to 10 more for woe, and definitely more if there's a lot of dynamicism or complexity to the deck. Like I have some lower rated Coda decks that are really just trying to jam some pips, maybe reap a couple times, but there's not a ton of like depth or complexity to what they're trying to do, at least to my eye. And if there is, it's probably going to be something that I find in the 50 reps range.
Hmm.
um, but I think for a lot of decks, yeah, 5 to 10. I know plenty of folks will say, yeah, I try and get 10 reps at least with any of my decks. I can't say I've done that with all of mine, but yeah, once I've hit 10, I feel like I've got a decent, at least flavor, like taste for the flavor of the deck.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, more with Woe, just because there's so much variance in Woe that you're not gonna. You could play the deck 3 times and it's gonna be 3 different decks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gonna take more than that. And I know B-Hawk would say even for Coda and AOA decks would say it's more than 10 or 15. I think he would, if he were here, he'd probably say like at least 20 or 30.
I wish I had the chart. It was one I had shared a while back when I was looking at decks for adaptive, and I had picked one out. It's a cool one. I can bring it up later if it makes sense. But I was looking at my record on it with the old Crucible tracker, and I at the time had something like 50 plays with the deck, right? And if you'll remember, quick draw, the Crucible tracker would show a little chart with your wins and loss. Red squares and green squares, and the first 25 squares in that chart, in that 50 square chart, were like 3/4 red, and the second 25 were like 3/4 green. Uh, and it was like, yeah, I can see where the inflection point was, and it was right around the 25 play mark. So there's definitely, sometimes 10 won't be enough, but it's at least a good point to see where you're starting to have things click.
Yeah, and that is interesting because like if there's a deck that I'm looking to purchase on the secondary market that is a little bit more expensive, then I'm more likely to get more reps to play with it before I decide if I want to buy it. And I've had multiple cases where I test something on the secondary market and I win like 8 out of 10 or something like that. And I'm thinking like this feels great. I'm getting the feel for it. It's played really well, like right out of the gate. And then I get it and like hit ruts. And so 10 games is not enough of a sample size to say definitively one way or another. So again, like even more reps, but like I think after 10, if it's a very if it's a fairly straightforward deck, you're gonna know if it's not the one. You're gonna
Mm,
know. If you're not feeling like your decisions matter, if you're feeling like you run into too many situations that you don't have an answer for, even if you did draw the cards in the right order, that's going to be a red flag to me that like, yeah, this probably isn't going to be the one. Um, you have to be very careful. I think creature control is the one thing that sticks out. Like if you don't have any creature control, you're going to have a lot of games where you're just going to feel pretty helpless.
mm,
Um, you might need some other ways around that, like scaling amber control, like just so if they do have a board that they can reap out with, that you're, at least able to cap them from going like above 9 or so, just from that threat. But I do think creature control at lower SAS is pretty important. And if you don't have it, you got to make sure that your deck is working towards another game plan, whether that is like a really heavy rush, a key cheat, some kind of disruption, things like that, that I think could make up for that lack of C.
Why do I feel like you're looking at Denizag with the 4.3C when you're just kind of like this look in your eye like, it's not gonna fly.
I mean, I have Guadalupe is pretty similar. Guadalupe is very low C as well. It's
Hmm.
I think a 7 or 8, something like that, and it's one of my favorite Dark Tidings decks. And for those low C decks, if you have a board wipe or you have something like I'm not sure if Denizeg even has anything like that,
Mm-mm.
um, you need to be very careful about how you play it. And looking at Denizag, this is just a AOA rush deck basically, and it has 4.3C, but it does have a Chota Hazard, lots of ways to recur it. So you can set up like your game plan is different. You're not just, you're not really as concerned about the opponent's board. You're concerned about making 3 keys before they do and
Yes.
being able to do it faster. And that's okay. I think the decks that can do that are more rare. If I had a deck that was like heavy and rushed and didn't have a key cheat and it didn't have creature control, I'd be pretty unsatisfied because you're gonna end up losing to something like a Diasoas or a Timoti the Damned, things like that. So you're gonna have like more of those kind of bad matchup cards if you don't have a key cheat and you don't have C and you don't have a ton of efficiency. So you got to look not for necessarily a well-rounded deck, but something that has a game plan to make up for that deficiency.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I like this because this we're starting to home in on a little bit on what things should you look for, and especially if your deck is much lower, you're probably having some holes, and the question then is like, what am I getting in exchange for those holes? And if what you're getting is enough to have a reasonable game plan, like Danazag, yeah, it's not a great deck, but it illustrates what you can do when you are all in on your deck having teeth and no defense, right? So in the world before in a world before woe, it could do the runaway board state thing, which sometimes that's just good enough, and it can also rush and then throw out a key cheat. And I really really like having some sort of reach or disruption um, available if you're kind of trying to punch up, right? You need a way to sneak over the line, as it were. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I have a few other decks. Like I know we're talking about low SAS decks, but when I think of my favorite low creature control decks, I think of one of the strongest decks I've ever opened, which is a mass mutation deck called Macro Bell. It has just runaway mutants, three Tirados, and its only creature control is a Kurzap in a standardized testing. And I was very, very like scared of playing that deck competitively when I first got it because I was like, man, this looks so powerful. It's got three Infernuses, ways to recur them, but it has like so little creature control. I've always been like, you guys know, like I've always been someone to hate on Worlds Collide because it has no creature control, like in most decks. And I see a Worlds Collide deck with like 5C, and I'm like, I'm not afraid of that. It's a bad deck, you know? And then I open Macro Bell, and I'm like, yeah, this is just like all of those decks that I've always criticized. But as I played it and I got reps with it, I learned about like having situations where like my opponent might have six creatures, and I'm still holding my Kurzap. And you're making them try to commit to the board even more because if you just play the Kurzap, which is like the only way that I have to clear creatures along with standardize, and they just refill the board the next turn, you're not any better off. Like you need to learn how to play those cards, and you can compensate for low C like that if you just get the reps and you understand like okay, like what's the right point where I need to hold this card for and play it.
Mm.
And so there are ways to play around those kind of deficiencies in decks that I find very like satisfying and fulfilling. And I know that that's like a high SAS example. It's like 85 or something like that now. But I think a similar principle is going to apply to your low SAS decks as well. Like if creature control is at a premium for you, you want to make sure that you use it at the exact right time and you don't discard it or play it for very little value.
Hmm. Hmm. And so I think that's something that you can achieve through I don't know, reps, knowing your deck, having a heads up game plan, and kind of being smart about your strategy and what your deck's trying to do. Whereas I don't know, maybe folks will gravitate towards these higher size decks because you can be a little sloppier and get away with not having to worry about those things as much. So I don't know, it's interesting. Um,
Yeah.
all
There's
right.
another concept here that's relevant that we're going to mention Aurora's name again because she's done a lot of contributions to this kind of thought and what because she's the owner and most prominent player of natural philosopher Bazi Biztoff, and she coined the term. I'm pretty sure she's the one that coined it, affinity. And I think having an affinity for a deck that you're trying to get these reps with is extremely important as well. And that just basically means that the deck you're playing, you enjoy playing with it. It leans into your style. You're playing it how the deck wants to be played, and it's something that you are good at and enjoy doing. And if you don't really enjoy playing a deck, even if you think like, oh yeah, this might be a really good, great 68, 69 size deck, but I hate playing it. Well, like I think that's not going to work in the long run. So in addition to the reps, I think you also want to find something that you can look at and say, yeah, this would be a lot of fun for me personally. And that's going to be different for everyone.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the kind of affinity aligns when your intuition kind of matches the right thing to do. More often, right? If your intuition is telling you to do pulling you in a direction that's not right for the deck, like I just really hate pitching cards, and sometimes I really need to hold the right card to play this deck properly. There's not going to be a great, you may not have a great affinity for that deck, or you may not enjoy playing it because it's trying to make you do things that aren't necessarily fun for you. So having that alignment is pretty key. Totally. The last thing I
Yeah.
do want to say too on kind of the reps and affinity front is make sure they're good reps. I think you could take 10 swings at TCO competitive and get a very wide range of decks that you're facing, players that you're facing. Best thing, I mean, you're better off getting 5 games against a player who you know and will give you honest feedback on your play while you're at it, and will bring some actual competition that you can trust is like good competition. If you're looking to really test out a deck for a competitive setting. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and kind of similar along those lines, if you're just playing random games on TCO, that's okay. Play focused when you're doing that. Don't just kind of click cards and play cards. Like, be very like deliberate about what you're doing and why, and that'll give you more information about the deck as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing for me on that is that if you see the TCO queue in competitive and there's like some famous names in there, don't be intimidated. Like I know a lot of people like, you think like, oh man, that player is like really good. They have great decks. I don't want to play them because I'm probably just going to lose anyway. Like, don't don't feel like that. Use it as a good challenge for yourself to say like, yeah, like this is a player who won a vault tour or has gotten runner up at a vault tour. Like everyone knows who they are, and I see them waiting for a game on TCO, and people are maybe avoiding them. Don't avoid them. Like step into that challenge, see what you can do, and use those kind of opportunities to play against more famous, strong players as a way of a learning experience for you as well.
Yeah, not like us. If you see
No,
us, yeah, just bring whatever crap.
if
You'll
you
probably
see us,
win.
bring some DT or AOA, and we'll have fun.
Yeah, a good question from the chat, or a good observation from the chat too. That the reps are rarely wasted. So if you're gonna get 200 reps with a deck, you're probably also building up your intuition for the game generally. Your and I don't know at what point there is sort of a splash benefit that lets you cut down on some of the other testing that you have to do. But I mean, yeah, if you've played 10,000 games in your life of Keyforge, you may start to need fewer than the 15 or 20 to get a really good sense for the next new one. I think that's pretty fair. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. Right on.
Well, so what are we looking at for other attributes? We've only talked mostly about like low C as one example, but like what else are you looking for? Like what makes a deck stick out to you as a low SAS potential gem, something you might want to give some extra reps to? Is there anything, maybe not just like an arc score, maybe not like just a number, but
Yeah. So I've been thinking about this a lot over the past week or so, and we've been brewing on the topic. And quick try, I've background in technology. I've studied and professionally done a lot of like machine learning, AI stuff. And when you're early on in your kind of like learning about those topics, you go through all the different, a bunch of different machine learning algorithms, and what's cool is that there are a bunch of different ones, but you also find out that like, hey, these things are all trying to solve the same class of problem, but they all do it differently. And the important thing to note there is they do it by making different assumptions about what the answer to the problem is going to look like. And that kind of means that there is some sort of bias inherent in the models that they produce, right? And I say that to mean that I'm starting to think about SAS as a model for telling you how good or weak a deck's going to be. And you can kind of look at the assumptions that it has inherent to it, and then what sort of biases it's going to have on the scores it produces, right? And so I'll give you an example, right? Or I'll be more specific. So SAS is saying that there are these 4 principal scores that we're going to rely on, right? The AERC, the ARC. And not only that, but also I'm going to assume that the one big number that I give you at the end of the day, right, when you say I've got an 85 SAS deck, it's going to be a value that I get by summing up the individual scores from all the different cards in the deck, plus or minus, some boost from some synergies with 1 or 2 other cards, right? Does that kind of make sense?
Hmm.
So so I'm assuming that I can tell you accurately how good a deck is by looking at, well, by one, looking at these four categories, and then two, assuming that uh, I can just sum up the values from the cards and arrive at a final score. And so to me, that says, well, if I can find a deck that is doing something that isn't captured by ARC, by A, E, R, or C, the amber control, expected amber, artifact control, creature control, and then some synergies between two or three cards max, then I might have something that's not modeled very well by SAS, or that's not measured very well by SAS. And a good example of that is uh, like house or not pod, but house rolls, right? So I've been very interested lately in decks that show very prominent house roles and where each house is kind of doing its thing that it's supposed to do very well. And I think Bazi is an example of that. And I think also one of my other decks, Ashman Kanimum, is another deck like that. So Ashman is an Winds of Exchange deck. It has a Grunt token. It has 16 creatures, but what, 8 of them are Martians, right? So this is a very prominent main house in Mars. Not only that, it's got a couple of airlocks, so you can very often have games where you get into a rhythm and you're just calling Mars, filtering out your non-Mars cards, making more Martian tokens, and really just living up there and having this really big main house Mars board. Uh, and even then, when you're going into the other house, you're doing so to either play out a bunch of actions or make more tokens so that you can go back into Mars. So like this deck is really like modeling the like, or is really uh, capturing the essence of what a main house is trying to be, with the other houses kind of doing a support thing and not trying to also be main houses. And I don't think that this like main house, other supporting houses thing is something that's measured very well by SAS. And if that's a thing that your deck does very well, then it may be a lot better than what SAS is going to tell you it is. So that might be a way to kind of find some of these lower SAS gems. And I think Bazi is kind of in a similar realm, right? Like I really enjoy watching Aurora play it, but it's what, if I look at the creatures in Bazi, like yeah, there's 8 really big beefy Sanctum dudes, and like you remember the Library Axis Time Traveler turn, you don't remember that she also played a whole bunch of Sanctum dudes that you couldn't deal with and just reaped out while handcrafting those combos, right? So Bazi's also really kind of modeling this main house and support or burst house type of thing, which SAS is not picking up on. And there's like other small card and, interactions there that you could argue it's not catching up on too. But I think that's categorically very interesting to me, and I don't think that SAS does a great job of letting you, even if you want to just filter down, like show me all the decks in my collection where I've got most of my creatures in one house and most of my pips or whatever in another house. Like that's hard to find. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily enough by itself to make a deck a main house, because I
Mm-hmm.
think your main house. I don't know. We could all go back and listen to Bouncing Death Quark to get like the more original, definitive definition of it. Um, Not every deck that has 8 beefy creatures is going to necessarily be able to thrive on a main house.
Totally.
Um, I think part of what makes Ashman work for you is, like you mentioned, the airlocks, which at least lets you cycle, get some more efficiency like that. You have efficiency in other houses. Like you have, I think, 2 recorded histories, if I'm not mistaken, in the Star
Mm-hmm.
Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have ways to cycle through. You have some agency in your card selection and your handcrafting that I think are all very important things, if you have the situation. And it kind of leads me into like what I look for with this, which is that I think there's 2 ways you can go, and both of them I think are very generously helped by logos. And that
Mm.
is consistency, where you can have a game plan that you can consistently execute. That's very hard to find. And then you have versatility. And the versatility would be really like the cards have been drawn a different way, and you need to be able to pivot and have a different style of attack. And your deck needs to be able to do more than one thing. and that's kind of hard to do for low SAS decks because a lot of low SAS decks are one dimensional. But when I think of one of my favorite decks, it's a Dark Tidings deck, Guadalupe. It has logos and it has a pretty good amount of archiving. You could theoretically say that the Untamed house is a main house because if you can get a situation where you just unload a bunch of Untamed creatures, they have to wipe it or you're just going to reap out and win pretty easily. But it has enough archiving to give it some agency. But there are some games when maybe like the devices don't come out, or sorry, the artifacts don't come out in the right order, like the Ulford device, Tide Warp, and Mechabili, which is a great combo. Maybe you have to decide like, am I going to play the Tide Warp against a non-DT deck, and might just like lose value from that? Like, there's so many different aspects of that where if you get the cards in a different order, you have to do something totally different. I can't rely on like a sneaky check at 4 with Tide Warp, Mechabooey, and Static Collection Array. Or if I don't get the Data Forge early, I can't count on like archiving a ton of stuff with Hydro Cataloger and making sure I can do that. So I might just play the Data Forge for a pip. You have to have these different ways to say like, okay, like Guadalupe has given me different cards this game. I am going to try to win a different way, and you have to be able to win a different way. And not a lot of decks I think can say that, but I do think that Logos, obviously prior to Woe, is a house that is going to really enable you to either have versatility in your game plan or to have consistency in your game plan.
Yeah. Having a lot of pips goes a long way there too. And as being noted in the chat too, house cheating goes a long way there too. Um, I mean, a plan B of just playing lots of pips is always very good.
Yeah, it's pips are one way to win the game.
Pips are one way to push yourself to that 18 amber mark if you're forging for retail for sure. Yeah, I agree with you on there. Consistency is tougher to come by at lower SAS levels. A lot of the things that will give you high levels of consistency are going to bump up the SAS kind of by their nature of being things that are highly rated generally. So finding ways to achieve that consistency um, is a little
Yeah,
tricky, but cool if you
yeah.
can find it.
I
Yeah.
was looking at a lot of the decks that you had kind of put in the notes for today, and obviously Ashman being a Winds of Exchange doesn't have logos, but most of the other decks that we both picked out as our best examples of stronger low size decks all have logos. There is only one deck on our list of 11, sorry, 10 that does not have logos in a set that has logos. And that is one of your Worlds Collide decks that has Star Alliance instead of logos. Not a ton of efficiency, but I do think that if everyone always likes to say like logos is busted and it's too strong, well, I mean, there is some truth to the fact that a lot of the best decks from the first 5 sets are all gonna have logos in them. There's a reason for that.
Yeah, totally. Um, you also just were had something like there are individual sets that are going to be underrated. Do you think DT in particular is a good place, fertile ground to be looking for underrated gems?
I do. I think everyone has to kind of analyze the cards on their own for something that they think is underrated. I personally find that if I look at individual card ratings in DT and my experience playing with a lot of DT, there's a lot of ratings that I see like where I don't think that card is properly rated to me. And so if you can find those kind of cards to say like that card always gives me better value than what SAS thinks it's giving me, then I feel like that's, a good place to kind of target it. Like one that really stumped me, I ran across a couple weeks ago was Flamegill Enforcer.
Mm-hmm.
It is rated as a 0.75 arc card. And this is a 6 power creature that has the ability to capture 3 for some amber control in a pinch if you need it. Its drawback is that after your opponent raises the tide, you enrage Flamegill Enforcer. How many, I don't know the number offhand, but how many 6 power creatures with the potential for amber control would you say have a arc score of 0.75?
Hmm.
I,
I'd
I, I don't know.
yeah
This isn't a trivia. I don't know, but I'm guessing there's not many.
yeah.
And I think when you consider something like the Flamegill Enforcer having a drawback in its score like that based on opponent raising the tide, and then you think about the meta in the competitive sense of nobody playing Dark Tidings, how often is this card going to be enraged? And if it is, they're doing it because they need to check you and they want to take away your amber control. But like, you know, I've had plenty of situations where I'm able to use the action for Flamegill Enforcer, or at least just use it as a big sticky body that's going to be there for a while. So his individual arc scores, Amber Control of 0.75, which is probably okay for a card that has the potential to capture three. But the expected Amber on the Flamegill Enforcer is -1,
Mm-hmm.
which that number sticks out to me as being very unusual here. Normally, with SAS and card creature arc, you see a creature bonus of 0.4, which exists in the Flameveil Enforcer, and that 0.4 is kind of the expected value of a reap of that
Mm-hmm.
card. Like that plus the effective power is kind of the reap. So the effective power of a 6 power creature is a 0.6, creature bonus is 0.4. All of that value is completely taken away in the -1E. And I just feel that I reap with this card a lot more because of its size.
Hmm.
And so this is one example where I think if you use your experience playing with a set or with cards and you go through the cards, you're going to find some things that in your experience don't line up with what the card's arc might be. And I think those are good places to start to say like, okay, like this deck here is a 67, but it has like four cards that I think like, I usually get more value out of this. And if you start putting those numbers together in your head of like this, headcanon SAS for a deck, you might end up with something that's like mid 70s. And that's before we really talk about like the nitty gritty details of DT doing some of those weird things that are not captured in ARC. Like that's another aspect of DT that I think is very underrated. Um, where like Flamegill Enforcer, okay, like you take away the -1E and you have a kind of a lowered amber control because of the potential that they are going to raise the tide. But if they raise the tide, that's three chains. That's disruption. And a lot of the cards that force your opponent to raise the tide against you don't have any kind of disruption involved with them. But a lot of times they are a very similar effect as a single binding irons might have. So these are those kind of weird interactions that are not captured in the regular arc. And I think just use your gut, use your experience playing with this stuff to say like, yeah, this card looks a little. It may not be like a game changer. Flame Gale Enforcer is not like I'm not using this as the poster child for like, oh my god, look how poorly rated this card is. DT so much better. But it's just like there's a lot of small examples like this. I think that we as players can kind of use our experience to kind of point them out and highlight them.
Interesting. It blows my mind that the -E for a creature, which I'm assuming it's getting because, yeah, you're saying, well, actually, you're not going to reap with this. It's either enraged or you're going to use the action. Could do more than negate the creature bonus that you get for the like, hey, you might reap with this thing and get some amber. Um, that's kind of strange to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's more in DT. Like, I see you're showing the chat one of my favorite DT decks, 73 SAS, Evil Twin deck, Gemelody Sagan, Doppiotrice Irreverente, and it's a Triple Witch of the Dawn deck with a World Tree. And if you could just like look at the World Tree rating in that for me real quick, what does
Mm-hmm.
it say?
0.4. 0.4.
Yeah, um, this deck would not work without World Tree. Like, and that card gets a 0.4 rating in here, but what it means in this deck is that I can get another Witch of the Dawn Evil Twin in my hand every single turn of the game. And that's just insanely powerful in a deck like this, where you have an Evil Chelonia to like double up on the amber that you're erasing when you play an Evil Witch of the Dawn. You have like some other great um, good play creatures in the deck, like a Valmart with a draw pip, or an Edai, or you might have like a cheetah giving its neighbor skirmish, and then you drop the evil twin Armadrone to steal two. Like these kind of things, like the World Tree makes that tick, and it has a 0.4 rating. And so I don't know if that you can call that a three card combo. I don't think so, but like there are a lot of cards like this that are general consensus is that they're a bad card.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll freely admit World Tree is a bad card in a lot of decks, but there are some weird interactions where it just totally changes the value of that card and how the deck plays with it.
I think this kind of gets back to what I was saying before with, you've got something going on in this deck that is not captured well or not modeled well by the assumptions that SAS is making when it's trying to rate decks, right? Like you've got lots of cards interacting in small ways that are creating a really potent, combination. It's not just World Tree and one Evil Witch of the Dawn. It's like, yeah, I've got three Evil Witch of the Dawns plus Chronophage is coming back, plus Eddie comes back sometimes, plus I've got these other creatures that are Evil Chelonia is coming back, and all of a sudden your Amber's gone. It's kind of this this like large cluster of synergies, small synergies that add up to way more than just what you get by summing the individual arc scores. And it's really hard to say, like, it's really hard for a system that's going to use four pillars like arc plus some synergies to say, like, oh cool, I see how it's all hinging together and enabled by this world tree. And that's definitely not something you're going to find very easily without playing the deck, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Aldi de Furious Carl is a similar thing. It's a 12-13 creature deck with a Soul Snatcher that is a brutal Soul Snatcher combo deck. But guess what? In most 12 creature decks, you're not going to actually play Soul Snatcher, and it gets rated very low, very low. But it's a card that hinges the whole deck together, and is just turns it from being a mediocre, decent mid-range Coda deck to a very potent combo deck. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to, like, sidebar here, like I'm not trying to dunk on SAS
No,
or
no,
the
no,
work
not at
that's
all.
done for
Not
it.
at all.
Like, how are you supposed to put a numerical rating on a deck that can play Chronophage like 6 times? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you properly rate that? Like, you just can't. And these are the kind of interactions that I think people should be trying to look for, to say, like, yeah, like you can't measure how strong this is, but at the same time, to go back to one of my earlier points, the world tree is what makes this consistent, where I can do this almost every game. World tree is generally not a target of artifact control, so maybe if they know what's coming with this deck, maybe they'll save it for the world tree. But being that it's an artifact, once you get it on the board, it's going to be there for a bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not counting on like drawing two different cards at the same time at the right time. Those are very precarious combos like that. This is a bit more consistent because you have multiples of the important card, the Evil Witch of the Dawn. You have an artifact that's sticky. You have some efficiency in logos, and so like these kind of things, like they add up, right? And it's not just about like you know Evil Witch of the Dawns and Chronophage. Like, it's don't think about like that specific combo. Like, there could be a lot of things that your decks are doing that you can recognize, like, yeah, like this isn't really captured in the arc anywhere. And this deck is like a 70, and the effect that this has and the frequency with which I can pull it off really like is some unseen value here. And maybe I
Mm-hmm.
should give that deck some more tries.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I mean, there's really no, and again, I want to underline what you said. Not trying to dunk on SAS at all. I love it. Love DOK, and I think that any rating system you make is going to have to be built on some sort of assumptions about the sorts of things you're going to measure. And unless you're playing every single deck and just saying, "Yep, I played them all against each other, and I've got a rough ladder about how good every single deck is," you're going to have to do some sort of assumption making. And once you've done that, then there's going to be room for some decks to be doing things that aren't really in keeping with your assumptions, just by the nature of how many, the wealth of possibilities of that there are among the Keyforge deck space. Yeah.
Yeah, Fudgenator brings up a great point. Glimmerlock is something very similar to that. Like, Glimmerlock is a two-card combo. Sure, it's got like pretty good rating, I think, for that combo. I think it does. But that offers a lot of disruption, a lot of consistency, and it's definitely a combo that I look for if I am evaluating like mid-low SAS AOA decks. And with Untamed, I'm like, ooh, is there a Glimmerlock in here? Is there a Glimmer Nature's Call? Because that consistency with which you can play the Nature's Call, and then next turn play a Glimmer and take it back. And then, like, if you're playing against a creature heavy deck, that can be devastating. It reminds me of Now in Stereo's deck.
Hmm.
He has a Glimmer along with a Maverick Untamed Hysteria. It's insanity. And that kind of thing, like, obviously that's very rare, right? Like, that's a very specific Maverick. Um, but that's not captured in Arc. Like,
Mm.
that's not something that, you know, is going to be properly scored what that can do. And that deck that he has like 65, something like that. And that deck just like can wreck things. Um, it's more than just those two cards. Again, it's not just like you're not just looking for a deck that has a two card combo and then expecting to win games on that back. You need to have more than that. You don't want a ton of cards in your deck that are just bad. And you're banking on this combo, unless that combo is like an OTK. In that case, maybe sure, but yeah, there are a lot of things out there that provide this unseen value. That's a great example, Fudgenator. Thanks for bringing that one up.
Mm. That being the Glimlock example. Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
So I think one thing that we are kind of hinting at here with the SAS scores is that SAS is trying to look at you put it this way. This is a great analogy. I thought like SAS is trying to see the forest and it can't see the trees. And you might have some really amazing trees there that SAS isn't really seeing. It sees the cards and the synergies, but it doesn't see like how the whole thing works together necessarily.
Mm. Mm. Do we reverse the forest and the trees? Either way,
Maybe I
it's
reversed it.
either way,
We know.
either way,
You
it's
know,
a good. Good.
I should have just let you talk about
Let's
that one
not
because
get
that was.
too into specifics here.
But yeah,
But
I mean, there's analogies are always fraught with not quite there. But this is a good one, I think, and I'll let you kind of like fix how I butchered it.
well, no, I mean, I'm just giving you a hard time. The like SAS is very good at saying, yeah, there's 36 trees over there. You total them up, and you're going to get this number, and it does that very well. And if that happens to uh, give you a good measure of your deck's actual strength, then great. And I think that it's going to be that way for a vast majority of decks, or at least give you a good starting point for evaluating large pools of decks. But yeah, totally, it's not zooming out and it's not trying to, right? This is not a thing it's trying to do. It's not trying to zoom out and say, oh, the forest as a whole has this really cool like uh, uh, Evil Witch of the Dawn, like Chronophage, World Tree, like Eddie, like evil other card, exactly like interactions going on. Like that's just not a thing it's trying to do. Um, and so there are definitely decks out there. Jamila Desagan being one, Rector being one, Bazi being one. I think Alvin Nefarious Carl being one, where it'll tell you a lot about the trees, but it's not going to give you a great picture of the forest. Um, and yeah, if you can find those, like there's a lot of good you can do with them. Definitely.
Yeah. One of the things that we were talking about earlier before the show that kind of led us to this analogy was really trying to look at like other ways to find scores that weren't really representing the value.
Mm.
And we looked at the anti synergies
Mm-hmm.
that decks had. We kind of sorted by like which of our decks have the most anti synergy and what are those anti synergy values. And I found that most of my decks with higher anti synergy had anti synergy coming from the types of creature control that it had,
Mm-hmm.
whether that was too much creature control or not the right kind of creature control or any kind of things. Like maybe it was uh, the weird one that stuck out to me was Macrobell that I talked about earlier, my mass mutation deck with 5C, and it has a Kurzap and a standardized testing that are both rated like a 1.6, 1.7 arc. But like those cards give so much value if you play them at the right time. And the reason they had like a 1.6 or 1.7 is because they had some anti synergies. Kurzap is like, oh, like you have like seven non mutants. So this is some anti synergy. And standardized was like you have a lot of like 1 and 2 power creatures. So that's an anti synergy. But like I get so much more value out of those cards in that deck than the 1.7 would lead you to believe. And so I think a decent starting point for you is to look at your deck's anti synergies and
Mm.
see like, okay, like this card is rated low because it has a large anti synergy with what I'm trying to do. But a lot of times, if you play the deck right, you can play around those anti synergies because those like SAS is looking for like the trees once again, and it's saying like, okay, well, in a vacuum, yeah, like you've got a bunch of non-mutants, so your Kurzap is not very good because it's going to kill all your creatures. But it doesn't see that the mutants that I have are amazing, and that this is the only card I have to wipe the board. And so if I use it to wipe the board effectively, it's going to just bring so much unseen value there.
Hmm. So if you were going to try and go back into the lab, maybe do an export from DOK, take a look at your decks again, wipe out the anti synergy scores, maybe even, there's, and you had mentioned this before, Quick Draw, maybe even look at the arc ranges for each of the cards in your deck and say, like, well, SAS gave me some point on the arc scale for each of these cards when it was deciding how to score my deck. What happens if I just max all those out and kind of trust that SAS got the right range, but maybe it kind of missed the mark a little bit on where it put the final number. Like, what does the ceiling look like if all of the potential lined up for each of the cards in my deck? And that might give you another place to look at as a starting point for some of these things. And yeah, other folks will definitely have made their own scoring systems and such that you could take advantage of too. But just working within SAS as the tool that's out there in front of you, like, yeah, throw away the anti synergy, throw away or max out on the arc potential that's been assigned, and see if that lights anything else up as other places to look at. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, don't just look at your cards and just be like, okay, like what if I gave this card 3 more points? Like play the deck, get the reps that we talked about,
Yep.
and you'll get a feel for which cards are actually giving you the value that they may not be given in the SAS or in the arc values. Um, yeah, it's not just I don't know. It's hard to measure it because if you're looking at anti synergy, that's a little bit different. But there is also those like the lack of synergy that you're not getting points for, and that's there's no like way to sort by that in DOK. So like you have to kind of dig deeper into a deck, look at the numbers of each individual card. You can't really like download the CSV and see everything like that. So it does take a little bit more work to find that kind of value.
It does. It does. And I think another place where there's a lot of fertile ground is just in WoW in general. Um, the reason being there is an awful lot, well, the final number depends an awful lot on the value attributed to the token. Um, and this is sort of a coarse grain value, right? You'd know much better than I would, Quick Draw, but the token is sort of the is sort of there are 4 or 5 different values, 6 maybe, that the token itself at a base level can get. Right? It's like point, in quarters, 0.75, zero point 0.5. Is that right? Point or
The
1.0.
token makers, yeah, I forget what they are. I think they're like 0.5, 1, 1.5, and 2 maybe. But the token makers get like a multiplier. And so
Hmm.
if you look on your DOK page, you'll see like how many expected tokens you have in there. And if you're expected to get like a deck with 20 tokens, that's pretty high, then that's going to take that token multiplier and multiply it by the arc value of your token. And so if you have a token that's only worth like zero point 0.4 and you have 20 expected tokens, then that token is going to be worth 5 arc. And that
Hmm.
basically means that all of your token makers combined in the deck are only scoring you a total of 5 points.
Sorry, I think I meant more like the base arc for the token itself.
The
Does that
base arc for the token itself is scored just like any other card is.
just like any other card? Okay,
And
interesting.
it's a creature, right? Like it's what it is. And so it is scored just like a creature is, but the value that it gives to the deck overall is like that creature, that score of that card, the token card,
Hmm.
times the multiplier of the cards that generate tokens.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think my where I was going with this is if the value of the token itself is off, right? Like if I'm looking at this prospector here, currently got an arc of 1. Um, if it's actually 1.5 and I'm making 18 tokens, right? There's a 9 point swing in the final number. So if the
Mm-hmm.
base value is off in a high token generation deck, yeah, you may it's that's a place where it's worth looking. Any kind of deck that's making lots of tokens will have a wide wide range of score possibilities based on the value that you attribute to the token itself, and that might be something that is worth investigating too. Um, yeah, totally. It's sort of one of
Yeah,
the cases where like an individual card's rating can have huge impact on the final score of the deck. So take with a grain of salt any score for a deck with lots and lots of tokens. Yeah,
I intentionally skipped over woe in this exercise just
yeah.
because the woe scores are they're better than they were, and there's a SAS update again today, which is kind of refining a lot of them. Um, but it just there's such a wide variance in what your deck is going to do with woe
Hmm.
that I think SAS in general doesn't really do it justice. And I think like I have some woe decks that are like literally 60 SAS still, and they just are full of cards that are just not very good value. But in the right matchup, yeah, I can make a bunch of Martian creatures and reap out and win pretty easily. And so to me, it's I don't know. Obviously, I don't like woe. I just don't. I don't know if SAS tells us as much about woe. Like it creates different win conditions, often with reaping out with a lot of tokens. That is just so different than what you're trying to do in like any other set.
It's a different type of forest, and we're looking for the same sort of trees. There we go. Yeah. And if you're following still, God bless you. I don't know.
Someone mentioned troopers in the chat earlier, and like for a while, troopers were like extremely lowly rated because they were just like negative amber control, and you'd get a creature, you'd get a trooper deck, and your A would be like -8, even though you have like a Rant and Rive, a Faust, and some captures, and it's just how do you measure that? Like, what if you know, how you play the game changes what your cards are doing as well. So if you have like a low rated deck that has troopers in it, and you're playing this deck and your deck doesn't even want the troopers, just don't make the troopers. And all that negative value that you thought you were getting from those troopers, you're not you're not getting negative value because you're just not making troopers and you don't care about that. Your deck's doing something different. And so if there's other cards that are like, I'm trying to think. There's another example I thought earlier of like this card would be low rated, would be poorly rated if I played it the way that Saz thinks I'm going to play it. Just don't
Right.
play it that way, and then get normal value from it.
There's a lot of exalt falls into that bucket, right? There's the kind of optional exalting that you'll get dinged for, but you look at it and you're like, well, I'm not exercising the option to exalt very often when it's a bad idea. And so in practice, I'm hopefully realizing more upside than the downside. But the downside is being represented here, and yeah, probably more prominently than I'm realizing in practice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do I
Mm-hmm.
still like Saz Cap as a format, Foxamal? I've never liked Saz Cap as a format.
I have to assume that was directed at
I
me.
hate Saz Cap.
Oh gosh, I will answer very quickly. Very very quickly. I do still like SASCAP as a format. Actually, I don't know some of the actually we've mentioned her a lot, but the SASCAP events that Aurora ran on the Time Shaper Sanctimonious Time Shapers Discord was a big part of like me getting to explore a lot of my collection during the pandemic when I otherwise wouldn't have, and um, I love it as a tool to prompt you to explore more of your collection. Do I think that uh, it is a great way to equalize a playing field? Not as much as folks would like want hope for you to think, right? But I don't think that the folks who are promoting SASCAP are generally doing it as a way of really leveling the playing field. And if they are, it's probably not doing as much as they'd like. I like it as a way to get folks to play different decks. Um, yeah,
It does that. I would agree with that.
yeah, does that, does that.
Uh, the Cloggin. All right, we'll answer the Cloggin's question here. It seems obvious to me. Saz Cap versus Alliance. What explores your collection more? SAS cap easily.
I would agree. I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Alliance, I'm not gonna take the bait, Cloggin. Not tonight. We talked about Alliance a couple weeks ago.
Alliance a
Not
couple
gonna
weeks
do it
ago,
again.
and I'm hopefully. Well, I think I feel like I said this last week. I said it last week, but we released it 2 weeks. I don't know. All confused because we released in different order. But yeah, have the results of the survey that we put out for formats and such going up in a publicly visible place. Should be this week by the time this episode drops. So if you are listening to it in your podcatcher and not here with us on Twitch, you can probably head over to sloppylabwork.com and see some juicy charts in numbers. Man, I'm just giving myself deadlines. We'll see if it happens.
Usually it's me giving you work to do, but you're just gonna give yourself the work to do.
Ah, jeez. What are we doing here? Yeah.
Well, we had a few other items on our list here to hit on before we signed off.
Hmm.
Um, do what do we think is the difference between a good SAS cap deck and a low SAS Archon deck? We kind of talked about this a little bit, right?
A little bit.
Um, there is a difference though.
And I want to actually, this was something that Ryan brought up in our fancy Discord server that I want to give credit to. And it wasn't something that I had really thought about before. But when you're playing in a like SAS ladder, SAS cap scenario, uh, you can try and push strategies that take advantage of the answers to that strategy being things that push a deck's SAS up, right? So you can get away with a less potent rush deck in a SAS cap environment than you can in an open Archon environment because like the TMTPs and the graphs are are kind of graduating out or pushing out the decks from your SAS range, and they're not around to answer you, right? So that's the thing that you could do, and that's not something I'd really thought about before, but it's not something that you can count on in an open environment, right? So you can't hope to have the same success with a middling rush deck in an unrestricted environment as you would in a SAS cap environment, right?
Yeah, yeah. SAS cap is about like manipulating the meta,
Mm.
and like you said, you might know that certain cards are probably going to be higher rated and they're not going to make it into these low SAS cap events. Or you might know that like low SAS decks probably aren't going to have as much creature control. They're either going to have all creature control or they're going to have no creature control because the
Mm.
meta scores will drop things down a lot. And so SAS cap is really about manipulating the meta and finding something that will fit in that meta. Whereas a good low SAS Archon deck, you have to assume that you're playing against the best of the best still. And you may have to make sure that your deck can handle whatever it's whatever's thrown at it because you could face anything. You could face Trainer Scholar. You could face like quadruple befuddle, and you need to make sure that you have a game plan for that. You know, you have to be much more flexible. I think with a low SAS Archon deck.
Hmm. Yeah, well said. Well said. Yeah, I like it.
There's one other question that I had,
Oh,
um, and I think everyone's probably like wondering this, and Josh when he sent this probably also wanted to know about this too. Like, how common are these decks? Like, is is Bazzi and sure we'll say Judge and these other like Rector, are these ones like extremely rare that they're like Saz says that they're around 70, but they are good enough to compete at a high level event? How rare are these? Are Do we all have these like sitting in front of us just waiting for us to find out which ones they are? Or are they really like extraordinarily hard to open in general?
answer from the chat: 1 in 3.1, 3.2 million. The
How did I
number.
know that was the Cloggin?
Who else could it be? It was the number is too precise. It's good. I like it. It knows the stuff. I would say so. The benchmark then. So a 90 plus deck is roughly 1 in 1,000 according to DOK. At least if I look at I look at the 92 that's on screen here, it says it's roughly 1 in 1,000. Do you think that the Bazi, the rectors, the judges of the world are more or less rare than 1 in 1,000? If you had to do an
I
over
think
under.
if I had to do an over under, I'd say they're a lot less rare than 1 in 1,000.
Okay.
I'd say they're closer to 1 in 500 than they are 1 in 1,000. Probably, and maybe this is going to get me into trouble. I think they're probably more common than 1 in 500.
More common than 1 in 500. Okay.
That's my gut.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting.
I think because like it goes back to the first point, right? It's about reps and it's about your affinity. And I truly believe that there is enough agency in the game of Keyforge as is, where if you play a deck 1,000 times, you're going to be really good with that deck, and you're going to be able to beat a lot of things that you shouldn't beat with that deck. And I think another one that actually, with that many reps that comes to mind, is Low Curve from Hydrophilic Attack.
Mm-hmm.
It is a Worlds Collide deck. I forget what its SAS is. I can't even tell you very many specific details of it,
Low
except that
70s, I want to say. Yeah.
yeah, Hydro's played over 1,000, maybe over 2,000 games with that deck. And when you play that many and you understand you've encountered like almost every situation you can encounter, you can do like understand and recognize the situation and make the right decision. And I really feel I'm not saying that you need 2,000 games to like become elite with that, but I just think that there is enough agency in the game where you don't need to open like absolute fire to compete if you have like the right thing you're looking for, the right number of reps, and just kind of understanding what your deck's trying to do and playing with it instead of against it.
Yeah, I actually had to face this deck in 69 right now. 70 SAS cap deck. Cool. Uh, yeah, I had to face this deck in the NKFL one round, and I want to say it was an NKFL Gold match. So it's a good stage for a 69 deck, as it were. Um, yeah,
I think
yeah,
he said that it doesn't play as well into the current meta, and that's fine. That's Keyforge, that happens. But you know, it's still a good deck, and the right matchups can still punch way above its SAS. And again, like the details of what's in the deck don't matter as much. It's really just about a player who is able to find something that they had an affinity for. It's Worlds Collide Brognar. I mean, geez. And you play it enough where you are just, you know, you're one with the deck. And it sounds hokey, but I really do believe that this game has more agency than people think. And find something that works for you, that you like, that gives you options during the game and is not just playing cards for value. I think you're gonna find some things that will surprise you if you get 30, 40, 50 games in with them.
hmm totally, totally. That's a good note to end on, though. I want to, we take pride in our pronunciation here at the Sloppy Lab. So I want, if Aurora, if you're listening, is it Bazi Biztoth or Bazi Biztoth? I don't know. What are you putting your stake on, Quick Draw?
I've known people with the last name Toth, Toth, and I think when I pronounced it earlier, I said Toth. So I don't know.
Okay, well, maybe we'll find out.
Maybe we will. Maybe we won't.
And do you want to take a stab on Rector? Toporbigos?
Nope.
Roll that R? Maybe? I don't know.
Nope. I'm
Okay.
gonna stay out of the Polish.
All right, right on. Well, cool. That's fun. I think maybe then we maybe have a sponsor we should hear from before we move on. Very good.
Yes.
This episode of Bottom Beaker was brought to you by the Golden Spiral Nightclub. Discover the allure of the Golden Spiral Nightclub, where amber flows freely as the night unfolds. Immerse yourself in the rhythmic dance of the Archons with DJ Cincy Rex, forging keys amidst vibrant lights. Experience a night like no other at the Golden Spiral. Very nice. Quick Draw, have you been to the Golden Spiral nightclub?
I'm not a nightclub person, but DJ Cincy Rex sounds pretty enticing.
That they are. That they are. And folks, I want to let you know that Bottom the Beaker is recorded live right here, twitch.tv/sloppy labwork, Wednesday evenings at 9:30 Eastern. You can you can find recordings of our past shows and other streams over at youtube.com. Search for @sloppy labwork over there. And for the very best content, 34 No, 57 times distilled and scraped from the bottom of the beaker. Search for that very phrase in your podcatcher of choice, and we'll be there next to those low SAS gems, ready to jam with you. You can find all that and more at sloppylabwork.com and Quick Draw. You got any words for the folks getting off of the final audio stop?
Hope it was useful for people. I hope you all find your own personal rector. And while you're doing so, please remember to stay sloppy.
Stay sloppy indeed. Well, now we have quite a decision to make, Quick Draw, as I kill the audio recording. What to play? What to play?
Yeah, we talked about this. And we are like, well, normally we both play like something that matches what we were talking about. And tonight we would both pick decks that we thought were low SAS gems potentially. That would kind of defeat the purpose because if we're both playing a low SAS gem, we're both kind of just basically playing SAS cap. So we thought maybe one of us should play like a real Archon deck, and the other should play something that they think might be a low SAS gem.
A real highly rated Archon deck. They're all real Archon decks.
Well, then the other part of this experiment that we need to make sure we do this right is that I can never beat you on this show.
Oh dear.
So if I play the low SAS deck, I'm just going to get trounced, and it's going to look like, oh, well, that's just a terrible deck, and Quick Draw doesn't know what he's doing. If I play the high SAS deck, you're going to beat me anyway, and we're going to really look pretty smart.
Okay. I see that I'm being set up to get trounced once and for all, and I'm going to take the bait. I'll play the low SAS deck. All right. Consider me baited, and let's do it.
Excellent. All right. Then if I lose, this is just going to be extra embarrassing. So
Excellent.
I don't know what I'm playing though. I don't have something in mind.
Well, we should lock in our choices ahead of time, so there's no collusion, no shenanigans.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, I got one, I think.
See, now I'm thinking about what your high SAS decks might be. That's bad. I mean, I kind of want to play Ashman, though. It did get bumped to 78. It was at 71. It was criminally underrated at 71. I think it's still underrated at 78. And yeah, talking about anti-synergy, like -7. -7. Get out of here with your -7. Like, this is
it's pretty high for
at least an 85 in my book, and it was at 71 prior to this previous update. But I'll go a little lower. I'll play either the subtly riveted Zoltan or something fighty. Yeah, I'll go Jinur.
All right.
But we have to pronounce the next. Yeah, who are you playing?
I'm going to play Zhao Yan, who spent 6 hours with the vaults.
This could go poorly for me. I don't know if
I mean, that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of my Vault Master decks with Brig, double Glimmer, double Eddy, some good stuff. Interestingly, like you don't see this very often. The deck has 1 heart, which is my own, and 5 of the funnies. And it's because I opened this deck in Philadelphia at the Vault Tour, and the name was so perfect for our experience at the Philly Vault Tour, because we spent so many hours just sitting there waiting for another game to happen. And so Zhao Yan, who spent 6 hours with Vaults, that just is extraordinarily apt for my experience at the first Vault Tour last year.
That's a good one. I must be one of the funnies there, and if I'm not, I will be shortly. 6 hours at the Vaults.
Who spent 6 hours with Vaults?
With Vaults or with the Vault? Oh, okay, with Vaults.
Yeah, everyone go in there and give it a funny if you haven't already.
Yeah, I funnied this one. I think I probably funnied it immediately when you opened it and had it scanned.
That deck was the reason that I was scared and not a fan of Vault Masters for a while, because I opened that I think it was literally the second person in line at Philadelphia, which means I was the second person to be handed a Vault Master deck. and I open that, and I'm like, what the hell is happening here? Like, I never open good decks, and the second deck that we've seen is this pretty powerful deck, which I'm about to get stomped by a Worlds Collide deck with no C. Um,
Oh, you're in luck though. I'm playing Dark Tidings, or maybe you're not in luck.
oh shoot, I'm
However
screwed.
you take it.
I got a game up for you in beginner. Password sloppy.
Okay, joining indeed, and I'm not sure how to pronounce the name of this deck. Uh, let's see, Noor, G Noor Dame de Vestibule
Oh yeah, I know
du Chahut.
Ginor.
Not sure how to pronounce it. Hopefully, I didn't butcher that one.
So I handpicked my deck because you said you were playing Zoltan. Now you're just going to do a bait and switch on me.
That's how we do it. Always be crafty when you're trying to punch up.
This is a good one. I like Ginor. Very good deck.
Genor is a lot of fun. Definitely wants to do a lot of fighting. Double Z Force agent. So a lot of upgrades too. And has some other shenanigans that I can fall back on. Triple One-Eyed Willa, or One-Eyed Villa, as the polls say. And so, yeah, we're getting in there for some fights. It's kind of our plan here.
Very nice.
Okay.
What is the SAS on this one right now?
68.
Okay.
68.
Qualifies for the discussion then.
Yeah, I'm going to give a mulligan here.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm on a play. I'm going to lead off with a Meliob and pass
Okay.
the turn.
I'm gonna do something risky here,
Oh boy, let's see
and
it. Take the
or
tide.
maybe I won't. No, you know what? I won't. Uh, it's just not worth it. I'm I'm discarding the library card.
Ooh, that would have been
It's
really
just
juicy.
Yeah, it's just not worth it because you got two Hornswoggles over there. And I don't love library card. It's not super important for this deck. So mm,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Positron Bolt.
All right, Positron Bolt comes down. I'm not actually that sad to see Positron Bolt here. It's one of your few pieces of C. Um, you have the Grand Alliance Council, but not a. You've had the Zap, not a ton of board control. But yeah, we'll go Shadows. I get to raise the tide for free here, which is nice with the Cement Shoes. And then run out a couple One-Eyed Willas. And there's one of the Hornswoggles. Would have been nice to would
Hmm.
have been nice to lead that turn off.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
right there. Just wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
All right. So as far as Amber control goes, you've got the Willas. You've got the Walk the Planks.
Hmm. Man, are we counting checks already? This is gonna be a spicy turn.
Yeah, it's possible.
Oof. 5 Amber Burst. Let's go.
You got a Mookling.
I do have a Mookling.
That's
Actually,
pretty much it.
the Mookling in this deck is pretty hilarious. Soldiers to Flowers. Oh boy, this is cool.
Yeah, let's just do it.
Nice.
Check. Let's go.
Check, he says. Unheard of in Keyforge. 5 Amber Burst. I know. I mean, I can stop you. A couple of ways. Let's do it like this. Sabotage mission.
Okay, that's a good one.
Z-Wave emitter. And a Z-particle tracker on the villas.
Start of your turn, ward it, and fight, search your deck for an upgrade. Okay.
No.
No Star Alliance creatures, though, because you've
Nope.
only got 3.
And 2 of them are Z-Force agents.
All right. Let's go star here.
Oh no, I'm getting gacked already. Just to kill this one villa?
Yeah, yeah, you know it.
Man. Rude. So rude. Explore rover on your Kirby. Very nice.
Let's see here. 1, 2, 3. I think I'm gonna go with an eddy, which will give me a little bit more value out of the zap here.
Nice.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Eddie comes down. Very cool.
Do I want to kill the Willis or the Myliobe? Definitely killing the middle one. I think I'm going to go for the Myliobe, though.
Very nice. Check at 9. All right. We're going to get a fight in here. That's pretty cool. Fight for some value. I think we take out the Eddie with our fight. Hope to not get brigged. Alright, Untamed it is. Witch of the Dawn comes down, takes back my Liobe. It comes down. Old Patty comes down. Make our creatures super fit. They're all the fittest. And then we're going to assert dominance with the Willa and fight off this Eddie. Okay.
All right, I'll take a key for 6. Glad you didn't have a Mookling there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this might encourage you to go back to Untamed if I do this.
Interesting. Interesting.
See how I want to do this.
Feels like a stealth mode. Let's see if we get it.
You know, you got to save those for the right time. Got to hold them.
Just get rid of them. They're not that good.
All right, we'll go star. We'll not
Okay.
take the archive. Don't think I need to raise for any reason. Let you have the villa if you want. I think just one assert dominance. Not too worried about that then. I am gonna just reap, I think.
Xeno training takes me off check. And a Dusk Witch. Ooh. Spicy.
Yeah.
Okay. Shadows it is. play another villa. I mean, we're playing this blatant thievery. Raging your glimmer. Mugging the Dust Switch and fighting the Kirby to steal. Okay. And let's see if we get brigged here. Could be juicy.
Would be a juicy brig if it was the brig. This is where I wish I had more reps with this deck.
Oh, interesting.
Got some reps, but not enough.
Yeah, there aren't, interestingly enough, aren't many places to play a highly rated VM deck.
No, that's the biggest problem. Is that like where do you play it? You know, I'm very thankful that ABR has it this season.
Now we're wondering, what does Quick Draw mean by wishing him more reps? What are the like plays he's considering? Glimmer for the Dusk Witch? Interesting.
No, I'm out of glimmers. Purge the other one.
Oh, you did purge the other one. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna play a fog bank for you.
No fights for me. You got
No
it.
fights. Gonna give that glimmer skirmish though.
Okay.
Not quite enough power for what I want to do. And you also have 3 Witch of the Dawns.
I
Just
do.
get him right back. Just fight old Patty then, I guess.
Well, Patty done been fought. That's a key. I'll take the key. Very cool. Very nice. So I cannot fight this turn. Quick draw, stopping at 5. Always suspicious that I'm being set up for the brig. I think I still need to be checking here. Maybe I'll put a cool Z-Force agent into play. That would be fun. All right, we're going to reap with the old Patty. Jackie Tar, cool. Z-Force agent, very nice.
Cool. This is when I have to refresh because my TCO connection isn't following along with what you're doing.
Reap. And another the fittest. Some big duders. Okay. Check at 8. I'm ready for my brig now. Anytime.
Okay. Finally got back in. Welp, what did you do last turn? Reap.
Reaped
Oh, you
out.
played a bunch of creatures.
Yeah, Jackie and Z-Force came in via Old Patty, and then we had the fittest to spread some more power counters around.
This is terrible. I told you, like all we have to do is just have you play the low SAS deck, and I'm toast.
You've got a lot of fight left in this one. I've been strangled by it before, so we'll see. Though Forge here to take the pressure off Brig would be huge.
Yeah, it's massive against Brig. I don't have a good option here. It's very bad.
Star Alliance.
I mean, yeah, I don't like that call, but what am I gonna do?
Star Alliance feels like a forge. I do get to forge. Hmm.
Awful.
Hmm. Some options. Very cool. I don't think we get anything by stopping this check. All right, so shadows it is. Yeah, maybe better to let you forge evenly. 6, 8. Reaping with Jackie Tar to shoot Anga for 6. Come in and fight to steal with the other. Fight and steal again. Play a hand cannon on our Z-Force agent. And end the turn with a check at 6.
Yep. Just drew the binate.
Oof. There's the graft.
Just a terrible draw this game.
Mm-hmm.
No GAC, no stealth mode, no brig. Just really unbelievable draws. And somehow managed to draw into a 2/2/2 without the stealth mode. It was over anyway, but yeah, I mean it was over. It was over last turn. Um, the only A I had left was the Eddy, and yeah, the GAC was very elusive this game.
Mm-hmm.
I had a few situations, so I archived the graft early, and I was trying to think like, do I just take it for 2 value right here? But the other problem with the graft in this deck is um, you often are going to play an Eddy the turn that you play it,
Mm-hmm.
which takes away your amber. Um, it's a weird brig problem that I don't think people have had to deal with before, Vault
Yeah, it's
Masters.
funky. So you
Um,
like either hold the Eddy or you short yourself by an amber, or
yeah,
yeah, an amber. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't think you would discard the Eddy, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't know. Let's put that Explorer over on bottom. Draw the stealth mode. GAC. Too little, too late.
Mm-hmm. Stealth
And
mode.
that's GG.
Ooh, GG.
Telling you, man, I can't win on this stream.
Have to play every league match when we ever get paired up on stream.
Never again. We did it once. Never again.
I had some I don't know, maybe questionable holes. I'm wondering if people in the chat are stewing over some of my holds, but I've been holding this Mookling Reap or Sow and Witch of the Dawn for ages, and I would probably play out the Mookling, maybe the Reap or Sow if needed, and then hold the Witch of the Dawn to get the Witch chain back with Mookling again. But yeah, interesting. Interesting.
I think holding the Reaper Sow is legit, because that is really like almost like a miasma, right? Unless I somehow brig and have like 15. But
Mm-hmm.
being able to always have access to the Mookling with the Witch is great, and then always having the ability to make it power +3, make me forge for 11, I think it's probably worth a hold in a deck
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't have a ton of amber control.
Yeah. the dream is to stack up all of your upgrades on the Mookling,
Hmm.
uh, have it be really beefy and warding itself. Um, but the witches
Yeah,
are kind of fun too.
witches are
Interesting.
good in there.
Interesting. Yeah, Genor is a cool deck. So I don't know. I think we did well by our topic for the evening.
Well, JT is now taking offers on G-Nor,
Genor,
starting the bid at $200.
yeah, 100 for each Z-Force agent.
I
Although,
know, B-Hawk.
oh man,
I know, B-Hawk. Trust me, it kills me more than it kills you.
they're so nice to me, guys. I don't know what to tell you. Um, there's, gosh, I wonder if there's an evil Genor, but I don't know. Do you want the evil witches for?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you want the evil witches, right?
Absolutely. I've uh I've upped my collection for Evil Witch of the Dawns. I now have matching pair Evil Twin decks with at least two Witch of the Dawns in English, French, and Italian. So if anyone out there has a matching pair of Evil Witch of the Dawns, two or more in another language, apparently I'm collecting those now. And so
Ooh,
just take my money.
what is the evil villa? Willa?
So there is no Evil Twin for this deck.
No, not yet. If the tide is high, your opponent loses two. So no steals, just they lose two when the tide's high, and it is always elusive with skirmish. Hmm.
So it's a skirmish, low-powered Hookmaster.
Yeah, low powered skirmish hookmaster. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think I prefer the steel, even though it gets rated lower and doesn't always have the
Hmm.
boost, the beefs.
I think I prefer both original Twin Willa and Hookmaster over the Evil Twin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of Hookmaster.
Yeah, there's more. The same swing, but the steel also advances you, which is nice.
Yeah.
Interesting. What are the other evil twins here? The witches. I don't know. Yeah, getting to like keep reclaiming the witches is cool, though. Witch chains with no, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, you have no other recursion really.
I was trying to think if there was a cool thing you do with Triska, but the creature comes in to do stuff ready already with Evil Witch. Um, so you can get Triska back and then play out your other untamed
Oh,
stuff.
Fudge is right. You'd have the Evil Twin Mookling, which really sucks.
Oh, Evil Twin Mookling kind of does turns off a lot of the magic in the deck.
But I mean, that's okay. It's like it would be a different deck,
It
right?
would be a
Like
different deck. Yeah,
I
yeah.
have in some of the matching pairs that I have, like one of them, like Jamela de Sagan, is very much like an Amber Control deck, where it just kind of like grinds you down. But then I haven't tried playing the non-evil version of it yet, but it probably has a ton of burst with like the Chelonia and the Triple Witch of the Dawn. So it's probably playing much more as a rush deck than it would as like this control deck of Amber Control. Same thing with like my French pair, where it has a key frog, so it like the rush version of that deck has like no amber control, but it can very easily do a um, key frog walk off, and the evil version can more easily kill the key frog, but doesn't as easily make the amber. So they're
Hmm.
just different decks. Like I mean, yeah, the evil twin mookling sucks. That's a bummer, but you're leaning into different lines anyway.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, the witches are really much better. It would be a different deck. It'd be interesting to see. I don't know if it ever gets open, it would be one that I would probably be curious to track down. Though I don't know. I suspect that the normal one's better. Would play better, or at least is more the sort of deck that I would enjoy. Uh, Laughing maniacally while there's a giant regular Mookling that people can't deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, fun stuff. Ooh, I know what. You know what, Cloggin? I had to double check how many times I reaped in this game because I've played no reap games with this before that are a lot of fun, all fights. Um, but no, it has there were a decent number of reaps. I can. I mean, old Patty. You got to reap with the
Old
old Patty,
Patty
right?
got some value. Yeah. Old Patty is an evil twin too.
Old Patty has an evil twin. I don't know if I've ever seen an evil old Patty.
I forget what he
Old Patty.
does.
Discard the bottom card of your opponent's deck or the bottom three cards instead if the tide is high. Destroy a creature that shares a house with one of the discarded cards. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it could be good. It gives
It's a
you some
different card.
C.
It's a different
It
card.
could it could also hurt you if you're overlapping in houses.
Mm. Oh, interesting. I the text is a little bit blurred, or my eyes are a little bit old. But I read its type line as Beast Fighter. It's Beast Fisher, and was gonna make fun of it for having a reap effect and being a Beast Fighter.
Well, he's man,
But
wouldn't that be a good trait? A fighter.
fighter, yeah, Beast Fighter. I like it. Do you fight beasts, or are you a beast and a fighter?
I opened a let me see if I can find it here. I didn't scan it yet, but I opened a pretty sweet menagerie deck tonight, and I'm not generally a fan of menagerie. Um, but let me see this one. The Untamed in it has 11 creatures. They are mostly bears and beasts. I have a Niffle Queen. I have an Ancient Bear. I have three Youngest Bears, which all get power plus one from the Niffle. Two Niffle Apes, a Mollymock, and then the last three creatures are pretty sweet. I have a Hunting Witch and two Fendangles.
That is sweet.
Hunting Witch with 11 untamed creatures. It's pretty nice.
There's has some value from the hunting witch. Is rarely going to be worse than a dust pixie if you're calling untamed. I feel like, yeah.
Yeah. And look what else this menagerie deck has. That's
best
right.
best menagerie deck.
Best menagerie deck I've ever opened by far. I still resent menagerie because they produced monstrosities like yours. Um, it's just it takes the fun out of it when I get I get this cool thing. It's like, oh, sweet, I got a hunting witch with 11 creatures. That sounds amazing. And JT has seven curses and Jenka, and he can replay the Jenka every turn. And I'm like, okay, well, my 11 creatures in Untamed are a little bit less exciting, but in a vacuum, this is a fun one.
It'd be pretty cool. I think it'd be an interesting match. What do you have in the way of amber control in that? I forget. I'm forgetting.
Um, I I have some captures, I think.
Hmm.
Wait, I played 3 games tonight with a local. Had a lot of fun. Did some blind sealed. I'm trying not to get my decks mixed up. This menagerie deck has uh two in here somewhere. No, one in here somewhere, one boo, and one ecto charge.
My first
Um,
thought was like, but what's in there somewhere? Like, it's two of what's in there somewhere. Oh, I got you. Nice.
it has as far as amber control, there's like a tribute and a couple. That might be it.
You got the tribute
Might
with
just
the Scudam, which is pretty nice.
tribute with a Scudam and a Trooper.
Scudam or
Uh,
Scudam? I don't know. No.
Scudam.
Hmm.
Got a BR Geist. Yeah, I don't know if this has any other. It's got to have more amber control. Wait a minute. Oh, it's got a Legionary Trainer. That's not bad.
Legionary trainer and trooper. All right.
Yeah, that's literally the only amber control is a tribute.
Hmm.
It's a rush deck. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
It's all gas, man. You know,
It's all gas. That's right.
it's all gas.
It's got that precocious fragment. I think that's what it's called.
Fragments, indeed.
Yeah. If you're haunted, gain one. This deck is just all gas for sure.
I like it. That's cool. So, and what were the reported not pods? What are they called again?
Packets.
Packets. Thank you.
Yeah, though the reported packets are weird. It's got the Caspera packet, which is the ghost, and
Okay.
it's one Caspera ghost and four precocious fragments, I
Hmm.
guess. And then Saurian philosophers, because it has a Aristotle, Platypelta, um, Sacra, Sacratosaurus, and a Dilophosaurus, um, and a golden spiral. So I don't know. I feel like that's kind of weak sauce as far as packets go. Um, I thought for sure that the Untamed would be a packet of
Hmm.
like 11 creatures, lots of beasts, three witches, but
Yeah.
that's not even noted. So
Well, when I saw the Niffle Queen and 11 untamed creatures, I was like, oh, are they all like Niffle Beast things that are gonna
that
get
would be
boosts?
awesome if
Yeah,
they were all Niffles.
all Niffles. That would be
If the
funny.
that would be a good packet. I don't know if they did that, but if you had a packet of 12 Niffle cards, like Niffle Kong, two Niffle Beasts,
Oh, Niffle Kong. Yeah, yeah.
four Niffle Apes, two Troop Calls, something like that, that'd be a fun pod.
Oh, question from yeah. This is quite a good question from Getzer. I don't know this. Is there has there been like a list compiled of the packets somewhere? I don't think Gigi's posted one. I don't know if anybody's compiled one.
GG hasn't. I'm not aware of one if there is one.
Let's see. I know I have a double leader packet, or double leader deck, which is like just kind of like, womp womp. But I don't know what the other ones.
I mean,
Leader,
I liked
leader.
what
Oof.
I, I like what they were going for, and I don't think I'd have any complaints if they didn't produce something like recurring Jenka packets. Like if you can like have these synergies and have a balanced sealed environment, be a lot of fun. But when someone can just like forge all their keys for free and have their deck in hand, and I can gain an extra amber from a soul snatcher, it doesn't really feel like we're playing the same game.
Yeah, I yeah, I hear you. I think if the goal is like largely to give folks something to run with the day of, um, yeah, a little bit of a more variance in the strength is not terrible. There's a pretty wide range for sure, and I do think too. I don't know if this was just we happened to saw people playing the spicier ones, but it felt like there were a lot of Jenka decks running around, like an
Hmm.
awful lot of Jenga decks running
I'm
around.
sure that has something to do with it. That yeah, like people are going to play their good ones. No one saw my Hastatus Raptors like werewolf deck because it was garbage and I didn't want to play it.
Mm. Yeah, this one's really spicy. I don't know. It's even just like when you look at the Geistoid house and just see the list of all the Mavericks. I don't know if you can get that in focus. Maybe not.
I can see it. I don't know if the viewers can because it's a
Yeah, I
tiny
can't
little
see
thing
it.
in the corner.
But the packets are Jenka and Treachery in the Geistoid house. It's like, all right, 7 curses. 6 of the Mavericks is very funny.
All
Plus,
seven of them too.
all
Like
7 of them.
other people got the treachery packet with like four or five curses.
Interesting.
And GG was just like, well, this guy's got Jenko. We might as well just give him all seven curses.
Give me all the curses, man. I love it. I love it. Yeah. And an ecto charge, because why not? Yes, why not?
It's like your only non-curse Geistoid card.
Yeah.
Did you have a boo
Actually,
in there?
no boo. I'm trying to think if there's other things that fill my discard pile. So let's see. It's the 7 curses, ecto charge. Then we've got infiltrator, harvest, skimmer, touchstone, and albiestray. So the infiltrator has treachery. Is that right? Am I remembering that right or getting
Yes.
mixed up?
It's like a Scally Caper,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, yeah, I opened a double boo deck tonight, but no Ecto Charge in there. It does
Boo.
have Winds of Death, which was super spicy. I played Winds of Death twice in one game, and both times my opponent got like one or zero creatures from it.
Wow. Spicy. That's cool. That's cool. You've got Grim Reminders rolling into your local events. Folks throwing around some cards at the old LGS.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and let me just share this with, I don't know, again, no one can probably see this, because can you make our videos bigger
I
for the
can.
viewers?
I
I can show
can.
them something pretty cool that I opened tonight. We played 3 games, blind sealed. We did one menagerie and 2 grim reminders. and decided to open one of my revenants and got that guy right here. Which, let me know when I was focused. There we
Encounter
go.
Golem looks good. Yeah, I don't know if I'd seen that one before. So hazardous 3 power. When you play an action card, put that card in the bottom of your deck from your discard pile. Destroyed if you are haunted. Archive Encounter Golem. Very cool. I love the treatment too, the visual treatment on the border for
It's a
those
little
decks.
busy. It's a little busy.
Hmm. So would
Um,
you prefer to see treatment like that or something that's like a foil?
oh, foil would be sweet, but I mean, there's so many limitations on how they can make the foils.
It's true.
Um, I don't know. These ones I think in particular, just because, like the regular ones here, let me find a just a good looking card. Here, this card,
Yeah.
pretty pretty bad card in my opinion, but
Curse of
Curse of
Spontaneity.
Spontaneity.
Yep.
If you could just look at the treatment, it looks pretty good, like just by that. But the one that I showed earlier, the Encounter Golem, also has the Revenant treatment, and it looks like a little bit too much.
So that was Revenant on top of the
Hmm.
Awakening deck treatment.
Yeah, that's right.
Interesting. Okay. I could see that being a little too much. Sure. I will say too, while we're on the topic of visuals on the cards, I am a really big fan of the menagerie card backs. Um,
Yeah,
I know folks have said that the gray ones were a little bland. I don't know. I'm a grayscale fan myself. Um,
mine was gray tonight, and I actually kind of liked it.
yeah, I think it looks cool. Like I don't know if it's just the novelty, and it would feel less special if we saw them all the time. But I really like the two tone back. I really like the flat two tone house symbols there. Just I don't know, really pops, really looks good to me.
It's an improvement for sure on the Unchained. The Unchained had like the black and white house logos that I thought looked very out of place,
Mm.
but I think they look a little better in here.
They look cool. I don't remember if the Unchained ones bother me. I do think this is an improvement though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
cool.
Well,
Well then,
well,
you got your pledge, and your locals are playing too. So congrats on that. That's awesome.
yeah,
We're all
I
very
think most
jealous
of
of you,
us have
Joe.
our pledge. We're going to be playing in the store on Friday. It was just me and my one friend. We met up, just the two of us tonight. But the rest of us hopefully play it at Friday at our LGS. So it's pretty nice.
Okay, cool, awesome. Well, yeah, we look on you with jealousy and lust. you know,
Did did the Cloggin get his today? I don't remember. I know it was supposed to come, but I don't know if it actually did.
I think they're sort of an asymptotically approaching the arrival time thing happening here. It's like by half every time.
Okay.
Oh, it
He
arrived. Oh,
looks like he did.
congrats,
Yeah, way to go.
congrats. Very nice, very nice.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching, hanging out the rest of the evening. Um, oh wow. I don't want to. All right, I'm not gonna like. He okay. So yeah, sign Garfield preview for the Cloggin. Way to go.
That's sweet. That's sweet. I don't know. That's a cool one to have, I guess. I did not get any signed ones the first time around. We'll see. Did you get a signed preview card? Have you looked at your preview card?
You would have heard about it if I did.
Okay. I wasn't sure if
I
you've like, yeah, yeah. Slow
I'm
roll on that one.
only slow rolling the troopers.
Slow roll on the troopers. All right, man. I dig it. I like your style. All right, folks. We'll sign off there then, I guess. Yeah. Thanks for all for hanging out. We'll see you around the lab.
See ya.